Hello, we're going to officially start. Thanks again for everyone for being here today. Welcome to today's event, Designing and Living the Dream, Guilford Zero Energy Passive House. My name is Alicia Dolce, and I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut Green Building Council and one half of the homeowner team for this project. Next. As a nonprofit, the mission of the Connecticut Green Building Council is to accelerate the healthy, resilient, equitable, and sustainable transformation of Connecticut's built environment. And the Green Building Awards is one of the ways that our organization fulfills this mission. By celebrating the achievements of project teams, the Green Building Awards shine a beacon of light on what's possible. And each project that receives recognition is proof of concept for future projects. Next. Today's event is the second project we are featuring in our award winners showcase. And from last year's first ever virtual awards program, the slide that you're looking at shows Bill about to deliver his pre-recorded acceptance speech for the Single Family Home Award of Merit. If you weren't able to attend the program last year, the recording is on our website and available for viewing. And it's really a fantastic opportunity to see all of the awards and the project teams who are working to make a difference in Connecticut and the region. Next up, we are going to feature the Willow Creek Affordable Housing. This project won a Merit Award for multifamily housing last year. And we're excited to be presenting on June 3rd, Building Green, Making Affordable Housing More Affordable. I also want to point out that our call for entries for this year's award program is May 12th. So we hope this program inspires you to submit a project that you're working on. The next slide is session etiquette. If you're just joining the session and you haven't already muted, if you could please take a moment to do that, that would be great. We are recording this webinar. Go ahead, yep. Go ahead, advance to the next slide. Yep, we are recording this webinar, and again, it will be on our award on our events library. We invite you to use the chat to ask questions as you think of them. We're going to be monitoring them, and there will be a Q&A at the end for open discussion. Session presenters. Well, if you've registered for this program, I'm guessing you've already read our bios. In addition to being the Executive Director of the Connecticut Green Building Council, I'm also a principal of Celebration Green Design and Build, and a founding member and board member, a current board member of Connecticut Passive House. The guy to the left of me is Bill Freeman, my partner in life and in business. As a real estate developer and builder with nearly 40 years of experience, Bill is truly the heart and soul of Celebration Green Design and Build. And Bill is also a founding member of, or one of the founding members of Connecticut Passive House. Bill, please say hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm pleased to be here and want to thank the Connecticut Green Building Council for recognizing this project with a Merit Award of Honor in their 2020 awards program. I'm really thrilled to be a part of this. And now we're going to move on to the section for the sponsors. Oops, I'm having trouble with my mouse. It's funny how it jumps ahead, but I'll work with it. So Alicia and I are pleased to have Minutair and Quality Mechanical as sponsors to this event. I chose the Minutair for this project as a perfect opportunity to put equipment into a passive house that would provide heating, cooling, ventilation, dehumidification in one complete package. And I'd like to introduce Alex DeGagne at this moment to give a quick little summary of himself and his company.
Yes, hello everybody. Really proud and happy to be with you virtually back in Connecticut, where I had a chance to be there many times in the last 5 years. So with my accent, you can understand that I'm a Quebecer. Actually, I grew up 6 miles north of Vermont. My father was a builder in 1965, did put aluminum foil behind wood planks in our living room. So we are in our family, we're trying to be at the cutting edge of building technology. So I am really honored and proud to be here and thankful regarding Bill and Alicia inviting me, offering me the opportunity to co-sponsor that great event from Connecticut Green Building Council, along with Quality Mechanical. We are an HVAC manufacturer from Quebec, and we have the chance to manufacture a very innovative product that Bill will talk to you later. And we are a fast-growing company working with a major HVAC manufacturer for upcoming new products. So you're going to hear more and more about us. And Bill, we're going to talk to you about what we bring to the table. And again, it's a team effort, with the builder like Bill and Alicia, and also from people from Quality Mechanical, Jerry Griffin, and also today, Jeff Gallo, who is representing Quality Mechanical. So it's a teamwork effort, people believing in doing better, creating better stuff, better buildings, and we're glad to do our humble part. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. And that's a good segue into the second half of the equation, which is the HVAC contractor. And I can't say enough positive things about Quality Mechanical. Over the years, I've worked with Quality Mechanical on the installation of geothermal systems, heat pumps, and now I've had the privilege of working with them and Minutair into the use of the Minutair. As we were installing Minutair, our technician, Jeff, would often remark how exciting it was to be working on such an innovative HVAC piece of equipment. And with that, I'd like to introduce Jeff Gallo to say a few words.
Hello, my name's Jeff Gallo. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. So I work at Quality Mechanical, and Quality, little history about Quality. They're a family-owned operation, been around for 75 years throughout the state of Connecticut. We have 3 divisions, plumbing, HVAC, and service. And when I got the call that I was going to install this system at Bill's house, with this, that does all heating, cooling, dehumidification, all in one, with ERV, all built in together. I mean, it was fascinating. I mean, I couldn't wait to start the project, and, reading up to it, and finally getting to the job site and seeing how this unit was inside of a closet in such a tight area and just fit so well, and the ease of installation of this unit and how well it worked was just fascinating. Honestly, it's just amazing little piece of equipment that is very, very powerful. So since then we have installed several of them, and I got to say the great things about the product, and it's been a pleasure working with Bill and seeing these new innovative products on other projects as well as his. And I'm happy to be here, and I just want to thank you very much for having me. So we'll answer questions later. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. And with that, I'm going to go on to a little commercial video that Alex's company Minutair has put together. It's very informative. It's very well done, and I think you'll enjoy it.
The Pentacare series, the only autonomous and complete integrated D+ HVAC unit here in North America, as the Pentacare is providing you with the following: real and effective 2-stage whole house dehumidification, check. First in class, medical grade air filtration according to ASHRAE 170, using as standard a high efficiency HEPA MER15 unique cascaded air filter, check. Integrated inducted air source heat pump with intelligent free cooling and turbo cooling, check. Fresh air ventilation provided with the highest heat recovery efficiency ratings ever seen in the industry, and third-party certified by the Home Ventilating Institute, on top of being capable of some net zero positive ventilation, check. One thing that says it all is the fact that all our multifamily building customers are returning customers. And they are not only from the private sector, like Onion Flats in Philadelphia, but also from some public housing corporations. Pentacare by Minutair, our innovative and comprehensive indoor wellness engineering approach, radically different, ultra-effective, creating for you and your loved ones probably the most comfortable and healthiest indoor climate you deserve and need now more than ever. Stay tuned and learn more about it. Broadly engineered and made here in North America for our climate zones. From us, Minutair, the science of air.
That was great. Thanks so much, Alex. Bill is going to talk more about the Minutair later in his part of the presentation. And as we've already said, Alex and Jeff will be available for questions. So with that, Bill, could you please go to the next slide? So how did Bill and I arrive at the place where to dream and design and build our own zero energy passive house? The journey began with Bill being one of the first builders in Connecticut to embrace Energy Star as standard operating procedure. He steadily progressed to encompass higher levels of performance as technologies and equipment evolved. The goal to go beyond code became part of our company's mantra, and in 2014, we made the decision to focus solely on high performance projects. This slide just shows a few of the examples of completed projects that we've done over the years that have offered an opportunity for us to learn something new or different each time we helped our clients meet their high performance goals. But in 2014, something truly special happened that would change everything for Bill and I.
Sorry, Alicia.
That's okay. No, I understand. There you go. So our first passive house project, I'm going to do something a little different, and I'm going to share a story. So sit back and relax. 7 years ago, we had an opportunity to build our first passive house, the one that you're looking at. The building standard was introduced to us by an architect who shared our passion for achieving extreme energy efficiency. The experience was so eye-opening that we decided to use the project as a teaching tool to inspire others on this alternative way to design and build a home. So much of the magic of passive house happens behind the walls. And so during the project, we conducted site tours and we made instructional videos as we worked up to what we envisioned to be the grand finale, which was an open house to happen once the home is complete. We had one opportunity to hold this open house, and it was over Halloween weekend, but a nor'easter was predicted that weekend, and not knowing how bad the weather would really be, we just decided it was now or never, and so we were going to go for it. I'll never forget that open house because it proved to be the game changer. By Saturday morning, the weather had gotten extremely nasty, and I actually wondered how many people would show up, but they did. They showed up in droves. And I happened to be stationed near the front door. So I had a chance to witness people coming in all day through this horrible weather, taking off their coats and their wet, umbrellas and their shoes and their boots. And I mean, in other words, I had a front row seat to how bad the weather was outside. Little did I know that this weather event would turn out to be kind of the ultimate pilot test for our first passive house project. And I'll tell you why. We had not turned on the heat yet. Now remember, it's the end of October, it's going into November, but this house was doing what a passive house is supposed to be doing. It was maximizing the gains, minimizing the losses, kind of hanging out like a thermos. So, we hadn't turned on the heat yet, but so far it was really comfortable in the house. But, this weather event really raised the stakes. And so we kind of wondered, is it still going to be comfortable inside the house? Would the surfaces be comfortable? What was the experience going to be like? Well, I have to tell you, the experiment, I guess all I can say is worked. Because as people came through, everybody was marveling at how comfortable the house felt. And as people walked around, they would actually touch the windows and they were surprised they weren't chilly to the touch. People were walking around, in their socks, and they were marveling. The floors were comfortable. So, it was sort of the proof was in the pudding. But something else happened that I wasn't expecting, I guess, and that was this quality of serenity that I noticed in the house. I mean, again, it was raging outside, howling wind, pouring rain, but inside the house, it felt like a sanctuary. And I had never experienced anything comparable to that. And it really struck a chord with me that the Passive House Building Standard is just delivers an extraordinary living experience. So I really like to share this story because if people know anything about Passive House, they know it's a robust energy efficiency standard. But I think what often is isn't known is how it profoundly delivers these quality of life benefits. And, you know, it's hard to show those on a slide. And so I think maybe a story is the best way to kind of paint a picture of what those are like. And with that, you can go to the next slide. Thanks, Bill. When we made the decision to downsize, we put ourselves through the same generative process that we ask our clients to do during the project planning phase. That is, we gave ourselves homework. We asked ourselves, you know, we had to actually, you know, define our vision, you know, kind of write it out and then compare it. Next.
So frustrating here.
That's okay. No worries. To flesh out our vision, we each had to answer 3 questions. And those are, what are our must-haves? What are our really would likes? And what are our nice buts? You know, nice but a little out of our budget, nice but, you know, just not a deal breaker. I think you get the gist. This might seem like a fairly simple exercise, but we have found this process of answering these 3 questions to be very effective, to create clarity, identify priorities, and to identify common ground. And, you know, the culmination of this is it ensures successful project outcomes, especially when you're working with more than one decision maker on what is arguably the largest purchase decision they'll make in their lives. So good stuff. Go to the next slide, please. An additional aspect that created interesting possibilities for us was that we were playing all of the roles. We were the client, but we were also the designer and the builder. So in addition to our wants, we, as homeowners, we also had a few additional parameters for the project that guided our decision-making throughout. Next. First was a can't pass up golden opportunity to try ideas and products for the first time. We embraced this enthusiastically. We were, in fact, we saw ourselves as guinea pigs. Next. Another thing that we wanted to do is bust the myth that Passive House has to come at a high cost premium. So we consciously made decisions along the way to design within reach. Next. Our North Star from the beginning was to design a home and site that would be better for both people and planet, delivering on the following must-have goals. For the planet, we were committed to reducing our home's carbon footprint. Since the lifespan of a building is at least 60 years and could be as much as 100, you know, it was really imperative to us to future-proof our home by locking in ultra low energy consumption. So that meant robust energy efficiency and renewables. We were also committed to being fossil fuel free or doing all electric. And again, that was a first. It also, this sort of approach to the building also really informed our lifestyle. We also felt strongly that we didn't want to be car reliant, and we really wanted to create a sustainable site. On the people side, we were very committed to healthy indoor air quality. And, you know, given what we've all gone through, I realized, you know, now this is, of course, top of mind for all of us, especially since 90% of the air we breathe is indoor air. We also wanted consistent comfort and year round. We wanted to shelter in place security. And we wanted peace of financial mind that really just meant, you know, shedding the heavy burden of utility cost. Our primary strategy to achieve most of these people and planet goals was to utilize the Passive House Building Standard. And Bill is going to provide the details on what we built. But before I pass the baton to him, I just want to share how we achieved 2 of these other must-have goals. Next. It took us about 3 years to find a location that would free us up from relying on our car. As a bonus, the lot that we ended up purchasing in Guilford is 50 feet from the Metro North Shoreline East train station. At least that's what my Apple map says. Bill says it's actually a little farther than that, but it's laughably, it's so close, it's laughable. We're also about a half a mile pleasant stroll to mainstream Guilford and the town green. And we're about a mile to Route 1, which for us is, bikeable and walkable when we're motivated to go for those longer walks. Next. Creating a sustainable site was definitely Bill's dream, starting with his unwavering commitment to create an alternative lawn that would not require mowing or maintenance. So what you're looking at on the right is the no mow markings that Bill gleefully spray painted on much of our yard as we were preparing to seed the site with a variety of grass known as sheep fescue. Next. Instead of a front yard, Bill's vision was to create a pollinator pathway meadow for birds, bees, and butterflies. As you can see here from his markings, this meadow encompasses most of our front yard. And it's really funny, but if you look closely, you will see those little remnants of green plants. And Bill and I were laughing when we looked at this picture because those are actually remnants of the daikon radish cover crop that we planted the year before to condition and frack the soil. And yes, I am literally saying that the first year that we lived here, we had thousands of daikon radishes in our front yard, and they were actually pretty delicious. But back to the meadow, that was last year, and full disclosure, I was actually skeptical that it would work. But Bill was the champion, and I essentially said, have at it. So Bill, why don't you go to the next slide and we can see what happened. Okay, the picture on the left is the what our front yard pretty much looked like in June. You can see that the meadow is really filling in nicely with a medley of plants. And right across the clamshell walkway, you can see what the profile of that no-mow grass. That's sort of, you can see it, as it's actually in front of a small garden bed with native plants. And then it kind of goes around and encompasses our entire backyard. The pic on the right is what our front yard looked like in July. And at this point, what we were mostly seeing was a sea of partridge peas. An excellent native pollinator that not only fixes the soil, but bees went crazy for it. And another disclosure is I would often take breaks from my desk and go outside and try and count the bees. I was so excited that they were there. Next. The real surprise was the way this wave of green fronds. I mean, if you look at what I'm holding, you can see right below my hand what looks like green fronds. So we had gigantic green fronds for a month and a half, and we were like, what is this? Is it going to bloom? And then finally, by late fall, they burst into bloom, and we had a sea of cosmos that encompassed our front yard. I can't tell you how many people stopped and actually would comment and ask us constantly about this meadow. And I really want to share that the meadow for me encompasses this idea about kind of what it means to dream outside of the box when you are at the vision stage of a project. Next. The last feature I want to touch on our sustainable site is our abundant use of native plants in the landscape and throughout the yard. I happened to hear a fascinating podcast featuring Doug Talamy, entomologist at University of Delaware. And Doug's done a really good job at really making this point that our yards, in fact, can be or should be a buffet for birds. And Bill and I are big bird enthusiasts. So it just completely changed how I felt about our yard and our garden and our landscape. And it really gave us, I think, both a very strong directive that everything we put into this yard, we wanted to be hit at this threshold of at least 70% native plants. Next. So this slide is just kind of an example of one of the garden beds. You can see those green fronds beyond it. That's what I was referring to earlier, just, you know, just big fronds. This garden is full of so many varieties that we have never used in any of our landscapes. And again, this theme was continued throughout our yard. We just worked with so many different species for the first time. It was truly a joy for Bill and I. So I don't know, it's just, again, one of those things that exceeded our wildest expectations. Next. So I'm going to pass the baton to Bill, and he's going to focus on what we built. But I wanted to just take a moment to cover, sort of just talk about the impact of buildings. By now, we're all familiar with the metric that our buildings, that globally buildings are responsible for 40% of greenhouse gas emissions. But according to analysis by the Connecticut Green Building Council Advocacy Committee, buildings in Connecticut actually account for approximately 50% of total emissions. This extrapolation is based on reviewing two different data sources. They're listed below. One of them is the 2017 Connecticut Greenhouse Gas Inventory issued by DEEP, and the other one is a 2019 energy consumption by sector. And that analysis looks at average energy use across the United States. So, you know, given Connecticut's mandated greenhouse gas reduction targets, 45% less by 2030, and 80% reduction by 2050, you know, this is truly an all hands on deck moment in time. The advocacy section of our website contains a wealth of information on the impact of buildings and also detailed information on operational carbon, embodied carbon, environmental justice impact, along with our 2021 legislative priorities, many of which I know you'll be interested in. So if you haven't checked out that section of our website, please do. I think you'll be really pleased with the amount of work and information that the organization is doing to kind of keep us all informed and up to date. And with that, Bill, you can take it away.
Thanks, Alicia. That was great. I was looking forward to getting into the next part, which is what we built and what we tried. And the reason I highlighted the tried section is that were things that we did in this house that I had not done in any other house. And I thought it was a good opportunity to experiment a bit. So obviously the Minutair HVAC-D and multifunction unit was a key component of that. We also used a Rheem hybrid electric hot water heater. It's the only device that's in the basement of the building, outside of the building envelope. And I also tried to put an induction cooktop into the kitchen so that I could avoid all the ramifications of venting a gas stove, you know, taking away all the heat and things like that. And I put a ventless heat pump condensing dryer and a high efficiency front load washer in. It was kind of an experiment because they're super tiny and they almost look like they're not really real devices, but they work amazing and you don't have to vent anything out of the building. And in the wintertime, it gives you a little moisture in your house. We use low flow plumbing fixtures. We used 100% LED fixtures throughout the house, low profile fixtures that go actually into regular electrical boxes. So there's no cans or things up in the ceiling. We used an increased R-value in the ceiling, the blown-in cellulose. We increased the wall insulation by doing a 10-inch double wall 2x4 framing with a flashing bat and closed cell foam. Triple pane windows and doors, and topped it off with a 9 kW rooftop array in the performance category. In the sustainable and healthy materials area, we used a carpet that has a declare label from Milliken, and it basically, they use some repurposed materials in their carpet, and they have low off-gassing. We also sourced out a local live sawn white oak flooring from Connecticut. And what live sawn means is that you cut the log just straight through. There's no plain sawn or quarter sawn, so you end up with every conceivable grain there is in a piece of wood. It's a very beautiful process. We use FSC Cameroon decking for our front and rear decks, and we used a repurposed kitchen, and the kitchen cabinets, the countertops, and the appliances in our apartment that came from friends of ours' house who were redoing their kitchen. And I knew their kitchen was nice, so I said, hey, can we have those? We'll store them, and they gave them to us. And then we also used no VOC floor finishes for the wood. It's an oil-based finish with some wax hardeners in it. It's a penetrating finish. It's not a topical finish, so you don't really ever have to refinish your floor. And then we used low VOC paints. I like this slide a lot. I've used it a lot, and when I first saw it, I thought it was funny and illustrative. It really sort of gives you an idea of how housing has changed over the last couple hundred years. You know, initially, obviously, it was a fire and a fireplace, and they probably had to wear really thick sweaters like that. And then we kind of moved into the part of the system where things became available, like steam heat and oil heat and other kinds of different mechanisms for creating heat and ventilation. But none of it was really that coordinated, I guess, would be a way to think about it. So it was sort of whatever fit in they used. And then we came to the advent of the passive house principles of building, where you could take advantage of the solar gain in the winter and not get it in the summer by using shading. You could have much smaller equipment because you have much smaller load demand. So it really, and the guy's really happy too, because he's dancing. So I like to think of how to explain passive house as like a cup of coffee. You know, back in the day, before all the newfangled mugs were around, you got your coffee in a paper cup, and it was really good because it held the coffee, and if it was cold out, it warmed your hand. But it really wasn't very good at keeping the coffee warm. And then, you know, we had products come along like Yeti, and they created this product that kept all the heat in or kept the cold in, depending on what you would be doing. So it basically would keep your coffee warm and tasty. So zero energy can't necessarily, or can't be really achieved through just passive house method. You have to have some renewables in there to drive those loads down, or to drive the use down. So one of them is a PV rooftop array, which we put on the back of our house, 9 kW. We used a heat pump hot water heater in the basement, which is made by Rheem. It's fabulous. It has one function that's nice. It dehumidifies as it makes hot water, so it keeps the basement kind of dry. And then, of course, we use the all-in-one Minutair HVAC and D. Alicia wanted to have a quick chat about this energy history for our house, so I'll let her take over at this point.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, I put this slide together, so it's only fair that I explain it. We wanted to show our total energy cost since we moved in, and our first electric bill was in February of 2019. So we have 11 months of data, which are the blue bars. Not surprising, the bars during the time when, you know, the sun is, you know, at its peak are shorter than the other bars. We would expect that. The orange bars are for the second year, which was last year. We had 12 months of data. And you'll notice that during the peak periods, those orange bars are actually quite a bit lower than the blue bars. And the reason for that is pretty simple. That first year, it can take some time to kind of work out some of the kinks. And in our case, there was a few months delay with our PV before our PV array was connected to the grid. And then afterwards, our inverter malfunctioned. And of course, we didn't really have a baseline of what we should be experiencing. So, you know, our learning curve was evolving as all of this was occurring in real time. So I like to point this out because I think it seems really obvious, probably to all of us, but, you know, the moral of the story is, you know, don't forget to kind of manage your expectations during that first year, because there are bound to be hiccups, or it's bound to be an outlier year, you know, particularly as you're making sure that the high performance systems and equipment perform as designed. And the other really funny thing, and this is the second home that I've lived in with solar panels, is if you love the convenience of having your electric bill paid vis-a-vis auto pay, it can be really easy to not notice what in fact you are being charged. And so again, this is just such a reminder, pay attention, you know, pay attention to the high performance to make sure that you're actually getting high performance. So we're going to be really interested to see as we go forward with this third year, kind of what this chart, you know, what this chart looks like. And I just want to remind everybody again that this is everything. So we just get an electric bill. And during those peak months last year, our bills were between $7 and $9. So that was quite a thrill, and we look forward to more of that this year.
All right, I'm going to give a little picture of our elevations of our house as they were when we had it designed. Alicia and I worked on what we considered to be what we wanted for our floor plan, and then had someone who does CAD draw them up for us, and with the intent of having a space to a future apartment. So you can see we had an extra garage door on the right elevation, and we tried to keep it very simple and clean. And the passive house you know, ethos is to have, you know, a simple box as possible, but have it obviously be, you know, beautiful and functional. And so like that garage elevation with the gable end there isn't part of the envelope of the thermal envelope. So it really, you know, it can be a little more bumped out and have a little more of a peak. And then if you look at the floor plans, we really wanted to have first floor living. That was a key. We're, you know, at that point in our life where we want to have a first floor bedroom for ourselves. We want to keep it smaller than, you know, it's about 1,100 square feet on the first floor, but yet we needed a laundry room and access to the basement, and you know, we have a nice little closet, and you know, basically can live down there most of the time. The upstairs, we had an area we wanted to have an exercise studio, which we use basically for yoga, and a little reading area. And then the two bedrooms, there's nobody living with us at this point, are basically my office and Alicia's office. And you'll see the bath there, that little closet in the middle is where the Minotaur sits for that floor. And the other one is built into our closet. Believe it or not, it sits in the closet. So Passive House is basically a system that incorporates the entire home. So it's a system that thinks of every angle and every nook and cranny. So there are basically 5 tenets that I prescribe to and think of. Airtight building envelope, which on the drawing on the right, you'll see is the red line that runs around. And the idea is that you put your pencil down and you move it around, and if you never lift it up, then you've created an airtight boundary. High efficiency windows, thermal triple pane and triple pane doors, super insulation. So that's key to having, you know, a robust insulation package. Thermal bridge-free construction from the inside to the outside, so there's no connectivity between the two. And then high efficiency HVAC, ventilation, and dehumidification. So this is a picture of our house as we were in the framing mode. You can see I used zip wall and tape. And I like that product from the standpoint that you can get very good air sealing right off the bat, and you also get weather tight exterior. So once you put the windows in, you can pretty much start working on the inside. So it also helps with enhancing the performance of the insulation. It supports your air, fresh air and ventilation, and it obviously helps with consistent comfort. The triple pane windows and doors. When I started in business, there were single pane windows, and then we matriculated into using double pane windows, which were very novel. And then we got into UPVC windows, which are even better. And now we're at the point where we pretty much use all passive house buildings use triple pane, at least the ones I've done. And it's just marvelous the way they operate. You know, they play a vital role in your airtight construction because in our case, we have tilt and turn windows. So they actually have a very robust closing system that actually pulls the window back into the frame. It's like a 6-point locking system. And then efficiency of the window, the R value or U value of these windows are tremendous. I mean, you can't even imagine how great they are in that respect. And they're also just a key element of comfort when you're inside the building, because with that extra pane, you end up having a break between the radiated heating, the coldness that could be coming in and where you're sitting. So as a rule, at like say 15 degrees outside, the average temperature on the glass on the inside will be about 65 degrees. So you really never feel cold anywhere in the space when you're in it. So these are some pictures of the windows when they were after they'd been installed at the rough. And you can see that I have plywood bucks around the window. That's the framing around the window to give you a place to hook the windows in. That window on the left is tilting in, so that's the tilt feature. The window on the right is in Alicia's office, and it shows you how it trims out and looks with a nice deep pocket. People love that feature. You put things on it and you can sit on it. Look, it's very, at first, when I first did the first house and we were building these big thick walls, I was like, oh, wow, I've never done this. I wonder how it's gonna look. And every person that we've done it for is just loves that look. So thermal bridge-free construction, that's another one of the important aspects of it. You really want to separate the inside of the building from the outside of the building. And there's a couple different ways you can do it. The way that I chose was a split wall. So what you're looking at is the inside of the wall on the left, and that's the 2x4 that actually ends up having the sheetrock on it. And then behind that is the exterior wall, also 2x4. And you can see that I've covered over all of the outside 2x4s with 2 inches of closed cell foam. And the diagram on the left was something I found on the internet early on, and I used it as sort of a roadmap for how I wanted to do the assemblies for the wall and the floor and the ceiling. And so you can see that I have the split wall. You can see that there's a plywood buck around the window. There's we put 1/2-inch strips on the outside wall to create a rain screen and a ventilated plane on the outside of the building. I didn't use dense pack cellulose because it just wasn't going to work out for the walls from an economic standpoint. But I did do something kind of unique at the top of the wall. I put a piece of plywood going around facing into the space, and then I set the trusses on top of that and taped that plane between the exterior sheathing and where the ceiling, so to speak, was starting. And then I closed the rest of the ceiling on the second floor with plywood and taped that all in. So that became my air barrier. And I had trusses made with a heel on them, a raised heel, so that sticks up about 18 inches. And that allows for the insulation to come all the way to the exterior plane. So these are some pictures. This one on the left is a kind of an odd angle, but it shows the wall on the exterior. It shows some spray foam that I carried into the ceiling on the first floor. And I also sprayed foam onto the rim joist there where the 2 floors meet. That's always sort of a tough area to insulate. And then I actually had bat insulation put 2 feet back into the room. the green insulation is soundproofing between the living space and our bedroom. And the picture on the right is just another example of how the split wall works with the spray foam.
Get the split wall, but
So the real interesting and fun part was figuring out how to do put the Minutair system in and where it fit and how we were going to do all the ducting and all. It was just it was really interesting and really challenging and fun. The thing that I really was impressed most about initially was its ability to dehumidify, because when you're building a house, there's a lot of humidity baked into it through the wood and the sheetrock and the paint and all these different things. And it immediately just started drying the house out perfectly. And it was just so interesting to see that all these, initially I didn't have it hooked up so you could drain it. And I was filling up 5-gallon buckets of water every day with dehumidified stuff, out of the air. And then it replaces the stale air with fresh. It handles pollen, mold, dust, bacteria. It has 2 filter systems. It has 2 MERV 8 filters and a MERV 15 filter that's your final filter. And you can see from the picture on the right, it's compact. I mean, that's the whole system right there. And underneath that is a whole bunch of shelves that we built in and stuff. So there's literally just 2 doors in front of that you open when you want to change the filters. So this is just a sort of a typical ducted distribution system that you would use just to show how you supply fresh air into the living spaces, the bedrooms, the family room, and you take return air from the areas like your kitchen, your baths, your laundry, and it's all supplied with an intake of fresh air and then the exhausting of the used air. This is a little diagram showing how we hook the whole system up. There's the flexible ducts leading to the supplies and returns are all self-attenuating duct, flexible duct. And then also we did that on the system coming out of it so that it cuts back on any noise. And I have to say the system's pretty much run silently. This is Alicia's slide. I'll give her that one. She picked that title and it's pretty funny. It's not really a thermostat. It's more of an interface. It just allows you to control the Minutair remotely. It's hardwired back to the unit, but it tells you, what your set temperatures are, what your humidity is set at, what your current temperature of the return air is, because it's not a thermostat. It doesn't tell you the temperature in the room by the thermostat. It tells you the temperature in the room by the return air, what's coming back out of the room. So it's as accurate as it can get. And it also tells you when to change the filters. And in this case, it says change the HEPA filter. And so that was in March, I guess, of this year, and that's when we changed them. So this is the, so to speak, the proof is in the pudding pictures. This is what our filters, these are the MERV 8 filters. This is what they look like. The ones on the left are from the first floor after 3 months. And the first time we pulled this out we were just mind boggled. It was just, how could there be this much stuff in the air that would have been normally coming in and out of your house, or is being filtered in your house when you open and close doors, and it comes in and then it gets filtered because it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week filtration. The ones on the right kind of show the unit with the face off and the filters slide in on either side of that opening there. And those are from the upstairs, and they're not as ever quite as dark as the ones from the downstairs. I'm never sure why that is, but it must have to do with laminar flow of air around the building or something, but it's always interesting. But still, they're pretty dirty by the time we change them. So these are some shots of the project as it went along. The one at the bottom is them pouring the footings. To the right of that is when we had the walls poured. Above that is when we were setting the forms for the walls. Over on the left, you have the site sort of filled in now, and we're getting ready to pour the slab in the garage. And obviously that picture on the upper left is of putting the concrete slab in the basement. And you'll see over on the left there's a little black pipe sticking up. That's the radon mitigation. You have to put it in now by code all the way up to the roof. And the other part over there is a little emergency sump pump if ever needed. These are some framing pictures. I really like the pictures of the trusses, especially that one from the inside on the upper left. It's just so interesting. It reminds me of a trestle almost, of a bridge. And then over on the right, you can see when they were being placed on the building, that whole roof system was put up in a day, set and sheathed. So that is one of the high vantage points of using trusses. The one on the lower left is the interior framing. You can see the partitions with the trusses above, but we haven't put the plywood in. So we put that one partition in just to sort of hold things together a bit. And then we went around and put the plywood all around. And the one in the middle is just another shot of the windows. And then you have the ducting system shown for the upstairs for the Minutair, and you can see how incredibly compact it is. Those are the entire runs of that system. They're probably at most 15 feet. And here's some pictures of the inside after we finished. I really can't say how much I love the lighting and the way the windows allow so much light in that upper left picture. The lower left is our foyer and some interesting lights that Alicia found that we had to figure out how to put them in 3D, so to speak. That was a bit of a challenge. And then the one in the middle is our apartment with all the reclaimed cabinetry and counters and the appliances, everything. And then on the right is just another picture of the window, how you can put that nice deep window pocket. You can, put plants on or art or sit on it. Just they're very nice. They're very functional. So I always like to throw this picture in because it really gives you a sense of how Passive House is in the real world. So the thermal image you see in the middle is the Passive House. I'm sure it was an interfit in some row house somewhere. And the blue means that it's doing its job. It's not letting energy out. It's probably a cold day and it's just cold on the outside and warm on the inside. So we know how to do things. We know how to do them better. So we need to build it better. That's what I take from this. And I like this slide because it kind of harks back to when I learned about thermal bridging. Before I had taken the initial Passive House training, I didn't know, never thought of it. It never occurred to me. It just wasn't in my review mirror at all. And so after we went through the training, I was like, oh my God, there's this whole thing I never thought about, this connection between the inside and the outside of the building. And I think what this illustrates is that, sometimes the obvious isn't so obvious. Sometimes you haven't thought about it. The analogy is, what you know. I know how to build, I know how to do gardening, I know how to grow meadows. And I know what I don't necessarily know because, I'm not a geneticist or something like that. But the thing that's the key is that you don't know what you don't know sometimes. And so that's what's behind you. You haven't turned around, you haven't heard about it, and you just haven't thought about it. So I think once you become aware of things, I think it should be incorporated as a standard practice. So obviously these bears didn't know about bee suits for a long time. And when they figured it out, they were pretty happy. So I think that we need to continue to, keep up with thinking about what we don't know. And I think that's the end of my presentation.
Yeah, go to the next slide. Yep. Ta-da! So that was great, Bill. And I just want to say that another thrill as far as recognition for this project was we were named one of the 6 green homes of the year by Green Builder magazine. I think we got the notification in February of this year, and it was in that issue or the one after, and that was a pretty big thrill to be, I don't know. And Bill was laughing. He's like, yeah, they always, if you're from Connecticut, they always call you a Yankee. I mean, there were houses in New Zealand that got this honor, but there we go with the Yankee ingenuity. So with that, I just, Alex and Jeff, if you want to come back on, and unmute yourself. Put your videos on. I know I see one question right now from someone, but I've been looking at the chat. there hasn't been so much. If people want to just unmute themselves and ask questions, we can do a round robin. We're pretty flexible. We've done it, both ways, through the chat and through people talking about just asking questions. So Alex and Jeff, I don't see you yet, but hopefully you're out there and you'll put your videos back on.
Yeah, I see
Great.
Alex, and I see Jeff.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So I see two questions. One of them is about cost. So let's just put that off to the corner for a minute. Somebody asked, the floors were open web trusses. How deep were they?
They were, I believe, 12 inches. And it was the first time I used open web trusses on a residential project. And I did it because I wanted to be able to have easy access for the duct runs and the wiring and all the other little things you do up in the space. I would have probably used a little more robust duct because you don't take into account necessarily the weight of your island in your kitchen and things. So some of the things were there like that. And I would also have done a little better sound attenuation because compared to a TJI, which is like a solid member, an open web is open, hence. And so you do get a little sound transmission. So initially with our apartment up above, it was we were getting a little bit of noise out of there. And so we had the insulator come back and put some soundproofing in up in the ceiling in our kitchen. But yeah, they're really easy to work with. I had used them elsewhere commercially, and because you just pick them up and set them down and they're done, and you put blocking in. So I like the concept. I would just make a few adjustments.
Okay. There's another question this is an excellent question from Whitney Talcott, and it's funny. So Whitney asked, did you consider SIP panels for the construction? And actually, we debated how much we could share with you today, because we absolutely did, in fact, start out with this thought of wanting to explore a prefab approach. And in fact, Melissa Copps asked, we didn't talk about the cost. And I was like, oh, should we mention the cost? Because people are going to wonder about it. We could do a whole presentation just on that aspect. And because there's so much to mind there. The short answer is we did consider prefab. I will let Bill talk about that because he really did a lot of tugging and pulling on that.
So yes, I considered a bunch of different things, and the name is escaping me right now for Adam Cullen's product. Help me out.
Build Smart.
Build Smart, thank you. I worked with Build Smart with Karen Gupta a lot to try to figure out if we could do this with the Build Smart package. I went so far as to teach myself SketchUp and then use all their protocols to design. When we were going through slides to do this, Alicia's like, what's that? I said, well, that was my SketchUp. And it just ended up that they were getting so busy with multifamily, and they really were focusing more on that it just wasn't going to work out being able to get the product here. And then I was struggling a little with the construction side of it, with finding somebody who was familiar with putting those panels up. I've used panels in the past, but not SIPs panels in that fashion, nor pre-constructed panels like Build Smart, which are Passive House certified panels. But I think if I had another bite at the apple, I might try some other companies that are now in the marketplace doing it, because it definitely, I have to say that the framing of the house was a struggle, because it's just, people, sometimes don't show up, and it just becomes more work. Because I recently did a passive inspired house out of modular, box panel, boxes, and the house was up and done in 6 months. So it really shortened the time, and it came out beautifully.
And I think, back to this question of cost. So the short answer again is that, so once we realized we weren't going to be able to do this prefab approach, we still kind of had this sort of fairly clean design. I call it the beautiful box. And that was, again, done with a thought of keeping the design as uncomplicated as possible, if you will. And then throughout the process, I remember, and Bill and I were laughing about it, he looked at the insulation proposition in so many different scenarios. And I mean, I think initially the goal was to use blown-in cellulose. And I should let Bill speak to this, but his point was, it wasn't so much the material, but it was the labor. And it was like, what do we do? What do we do? So, we went as Bill likes to call it, we went with the belt and suspenders approach. And then throughout the rest of the project, what we find and what we often tell people is that there's really 3 buckets. When you're designing a home and building a home, you really want to decompartmentalize it think of the 3 Home Depot buckets, right? And the first bucket is like your site cost. They are what they are. And I think all of us understand that, like for this site, the site costs were not, there wasn't anything that really, there was no blasting, there wasn't any big driveway challenge. The second bucket is your sticks and bricks. What are you building, the shelf from? And that actually is, some of the decisions that we're talking about now in terms of our the prefab or stick framing or insulation. The third bucket is where the real variables are, and that's the selections. And what we often find is that when people often get really caught up in like high cost premiums, a lot of times they're not realizing that it's those selections that they're discretionary. And for example, Bill, why don't you talk about the windows that we used in this project?
So there are a lot of window manufacturers, and I looked at one in Maine that's called Matthews Brothers, and they didn't do tilt and turn, but they did a passive house casement window. And then I found a company in Wisconsin that did a UPVC triple pane tilt and turn window. They use good hardware, Hopi latching. They use Rehow extrusions. So they met all the bells and whistles that I wanted, but they weren't a brand that anybody knew. They were not a brand to speak of. Essentially out there, they were basically had been an aluminum window manufacturer who the owner had, geared up to do, extruded windows. So I sourced it out through them and a few other places, and they by far were the least expensive avenue, and by a good factor of probably 30%. So that is an area. And also like the kitchen, a lot of people get caught up in the cabinets and who makes them and everything, and it's really what the cabinets are made of and the materials that they have in them. Do they have the slow closing drawers and the slow closing doors and all those things? So I went with a brand of kitchen cabinet that was not expensive, but it was very nice. And so those are the areas where, as Alicia was saying, that you can really hone in and save money in various ways. And even the oak flooring was much less expensive per square foot because of the fact that it was this live sawn wood that kind of incorporated it optimized the use of the log, so it then thusly created a situation where the product was less expensive. And those are the kind of areas, and there's a zillion little areas, and those are just a few.
Yeah, I know. I would love to just do a workshop or a seminar, just sort of drilling down into that aspect, because it was definitely a big part of the process, and we ended up sort of hitting our goal. Are there any other questions that people have? Alex and Jeff are still in the session. They're here to answer any questions about that equipment or the installation, or so while people are thinking of those, someone had asked earlier about the seed mixes for the meadow. And the funny thing about the seed mixes is that when we were getting ready to do this, it was during the lockdown, and everybody, it seemed like, was gardening or wanted to garden. So there were quite a few shortages out there. But again, a lot of just thanks to the trusty internet, Bill found a seed company out in Pennsylvania called Ernst Seeds. I can put the information in the chat. And through them, we ordered sort of a Northeast pollinator mix, which was already blended. And then what I did is I went and I did a lot of research on, I hope I'm going to say it right, the Xerces or Society. And that is just a phenomenal resource for drilling down into the microclimate for, you know, again, native species, and in this case, seeds, if you will, for pollinators. And so by using using that information and working with Earned Seeds, they were incredibly helpful. I hand selected additional seeds that were particularly high for local pollinators right in, I mean, I think I put my zip code in and it gave me a list. So that was tremendous. So we kind of did a batch, and then we did some hand selected blends. Bill, are you able to see the chat? Because there's two questions here on the Minotaur. I wanted to put some information in the chat.
You got to read it out. I don't really, that's
Okay.
outside of my expertise at this bigger junction.
Okay. So, all right. So here's two questions. One says, this one's from Deb Statler, and she says, are there just 2 units, one on each floor, or does the apartment have its own? Is there a square foot limit per unit?
So I'm going to throw those to the experts. Either I'll let Jeff answer the number of units because he knows all about that. And then if Alex wants to chime in on the efficient, you know, the capacity of them, then that would be a good segue for him.
All right.
Yeah, so at Bill's house here, we have 1 unit on each floor where he's living. So there's one on the second floor, one on the first floor, independent to each floor. And then we have one in the live-in space, the in-law space, apartment, yes. And that's on its own system as well. So Bill's house, there's 3 systems in there. And I think Alex could answer for sizing of square footage per unit. And I know there's another question too, if there was an indoor and outdoor unit, and I'm sure Alex could answer that as well.
Yeah, with pleasure. Thanks, Jeff. So we have a quick rule of thumb where if you build a passive house like Alicia and Bill did, you know, 1 machine is good for about 1,000 square feet. And this is exactly what they have, about 1,000 square feet per floor, meaning that they have, you know, 1 machine on the first floor, a second machine on the second floor, sorry. And they do have a 3rd machine in their 850 square feet apartment above the garages. Okay. But so meaning that they have, well, for their own section of the building, they have like 2 machines, meaning like it's like having 2 zones, which is a good thing. So about 1,000 square feet. Once again, if it's a passive house enclosure in Connecticut, officially what we say is, you know, we need to look, you know, at the calculation, the heating cooling load to see, okay, how much BTUs do we need for cooling? How much BTUs do you need for heating? You know, just to make sure that, you know, our machines will be enough. If they're not enough, there are ways, you know, to add more BTUs, you know, either by tying an extra heat pump by Mitsubishi. We do work with Mitsubishi. We have a solid relationship. They don't see us as a competitor, you know, because we are mostly from their end, you know, like fresh air appliance, and also a very small manufacturer compared to them. So that's number 1. Number 2, I think the question was, yeah. So yes, so Bernie Pelletier says, is the Minotaur a heat pump? If so, does it have an outside component where it harvests heat and dispenses heat when in cooling mode? So yes, it's heat pump based, indeed, you know, that we are using to be a stellar fresh air appliance, you know, to do heat recuperation like no others out there, you know, to have, you know, a superb, you know, indoor quality, but also a superb comfort. So, and it's 1 box. So all the components are inside the box. So the box you saw, you know, through the slide, you know, there's no outside box. So the way it goes is, instead of having an extra box outside, you know, as we are accustomed to seeing with air source heat pump, well, that extra condensing coil, that extra coil is in reality inside our box, meaning that, you know, instead of having a box outside, we bring the outdoor inside the outside air inside the unit, you know, with a very clever and simple yet effective mechanism with a centralized damper. Yeah, so this is how. So yes, it's a heat pump, and that we're able to use, you know, also as a fresh air appliance, doing the highest heat recreation of all HRVs and ERVs in North America, as certified by the Home Building Institute, HBI.
Hey, Alicia, I could see that Jeff and Alex were able to see the chat, which made me believe that I could.
Yes, that's
So,
okay.
yeah, and,
You know what? It's okay.
I know.
It's all good, Bill.
I was
It's all
like,
good.
"No." Anyway, so Robert Coolidge asked about the zoning in Guilford, which was interesting, and I was going to mention it before, but it's just, you have to only pack in so much. Initially, we weren't going to do the apartment because we thought you had to wait 5 years or they had some arcane, cooling off period where you couldn't put an apartment in a new house. And when I went down to the building department and the zoning, I said, well, I'm just going to use it as a brewery. I was going to brew beer in it and just have it sort of be there. And, for my own pleasure, maybe put a pool table in it. I don't know. And the the lady in zoning said, oh, you don't have to wait. You just fill out a permit, and yeah, you can do it right now. We like ADUs, accessory dwelling units. And so we went ahead and did that, and then we went through the process, and it's been just fabulous.
So what that means, though, is Bill is brewing his beer in the basement, which is outside of the building envelope. And sometimes I have to just what?
So. I will send Susan Odell, the manufacturer of the windows.
Why don't you just speak to that in case sometimes other people have that same question.
It's complicated.
I know.
It was Wasco windows, not the same as the Wasco skylight people. And it was a Wisconsin company that was originally an aluminum window manufacturer. During the beginning of the pandemic, they ran into tremendous shortages of material from Germany, the Rehau materials. And so they ended up closing the Wisconsin factory and are now just in Manitoba, British Columbia. You can still get the windows. You actually get a little better pricing because it's Canadian, but you just have to deal with, the shipping from Manitoba versus Wisconsin. But I don't have his contact information, but I'll get it out to Susan. It's the guy who runs the company is David, and I forget his last name, is a super interesting guy. He knows everything there is about windows. He's totally into passive house. So yeah, it's a great and affordable product.
Perfect. All right.
Other questions? I'm not, maybe it says.
Yeah, I think we're, I think that's all I see. So, let me look again. Any finals? I don't think so, but we, Sherry says, nice presentation. Thank you, Sherry. We had a lot of fun. We actually had a lot of fun doing this. Our dream was to do a live tour. And again, we saw the power of using the homes like this as a teaching tool when we were doing that first project. And so we always thought that we would do the same with this house. And then, one thing led to another. And then last year when we were like, okay, great, we can do it now, we all know how that ended. So so we decided to do a virtual event. I think it works well. We could, still share a lot about the project. We actually just found out that the town of Guilford, so Bill and I were recruited to be on the Guilford Sustainable Task Force, specifically on the Heat Smart Committee, which is a program that PACE launched. It's an incredibly inspirational program that's helping towns, actually municipalities, kind of transform their own, sort of, convert, more, or get more adopters in town, right, to embrace clean energy. And I forget where I'm going. Why did I mention that? I'm not. Oh, and so as part of this new group of people that we're working with, we're also now learned that our house is going to be on this pollinator pathway tour. Yep, at the end of June. And so we're really thrilled about that too, because again, we've just learned so much. And, our hope is if we inspire people to do a piece of this, then that's all good. It's how we learn. We share what we know. We share, what worked out, what didn't work so well. And that's really, I always like to say it's a contact sport. So thank you so much.
I'd like to just say again, a thank you to Alex and the Minutair group.
Thank you. Thanks to you.
They are doing such creative and great things. I can't wait to see the next 20 years and Alex's gray hair. And I want to thank Jeff Gallo, who came here and saved my bacon a bunch of times because I had no idea how I was doing sometimes. No, don't worry, we'll update it.
With pleasure, absolutely.
And all of the people at Quality are great. The guy that he works for is Jerry Griffin. He's just
A gentleman. Jerry's a gentleman.
I mean, and Andy, and I never know Andy's last name, but he's another great person that works there. And then the plumbing side as well. So without any other questions, I think we'll probably wrap it up here. What do you think, Alicia?
I think we're good. I think people are just kind of saying thank you and follow up. We had a few people say they would definitely love us to do a follow-up where we dive into the cost. So that's something we can put on our docket and we're putting something together.
Alicia will volunteer us for that.
Oh my gosh. I don't know, Bill. What do you think? Honey,
Yes.
are you ready to do another one? Oh God.
You're always so enthused when people say, hey, do you want to do it? And then as the clock winds down, you're like, oh yeah, I have to do that now.
Exactly.
Anyways, it was great having all the questions and seeing Alex and Jeff and all
My pleasure.
the folks that chimed in there. And I don't know who ends these. I don't know how.
I can do it. I can actually, would you like me to do it? I'll do it. Okay. Chris can do it. All right. Thank you.
Guys. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Take care. Au revoir.
Au revoir.